My name's Harry Rossoff. I am the cloud security go-to-market lead for Microsoft North America, and I'm super excited to be here today for our deep dive into Azure security and the sales enablement portion. Joining me here today is my good colleague, Brian. Brian, if you want to give a quick introduction.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Harry. Yeah, I'm Brian Stockberger. So I'm a senior cloud solutions architect focusing on security within Microsoft, and I work in our global partner solutions team, working with partners directly on all things security. So super excited to be joining my good friend Harry here today to go over our deep dive into Azure security and sales enablement.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian. So just a quick agenda for everyone on what we're going to review today. We're going to talk about Microsoft as a security company and give you all some context in terms of our security go-to-market strategy all up. We're also going to talk about the platform pitch that we have for Microsoft security when we're having conversations with our customers. We're going to follow that with an overview on the Defend for Cloud pitch, as well as our go-to-market perspective for secure multi-cloud, which is our key solution play that we're going to discuss here as well. And then we're going to provide you a little context on who our sellers are, what do they care about, and how can you really work with them with the key partner programs. Following that, Brian's going to provide some additional context on the opportunity size for you, as well as what some partners have done in terms of moving from 0 to 1 on being an Azure security partner. And then we'll give you an overview of some of the next days that you're going to go through from a technical perspective with a summary and recap. As Indranil mentioned at the top here, we're going to have some time for Q&A at the end, but please keep the questions going in the chat. We'll be able to take a look at those and help answer some of those as we go. And we want to make sure that you all are getting the proper context for this conversation here as well. So with that, I always want to start every presentation with kind of our overview of what is our mission as Microsoft and how does security fit into that. So Microsoft's mission all up is to empower every organization and person in the world to do more. That is our mission statement, and it is a very bold mission statement. However, that mission statement can only exist with building security into the integrated approach that we have for everything that we talk about. So from Satya on down, our approach when we talk about empowering organizations to do more and every person, that comes from the ability in terms of integrating security as part of that. And over the past 4 or 5 years, we've really made strides from being a security platform to really being the largest security company here in the world, as we'll talk about here as well. So always want to start the approach with giving you all that overview and an understanding of that as well. I do also want to talk about here, you all are probably experiencing on the front lines with your customers when you're talking about different work that you can do from that perspective here. But Microsoft really wants to empower you to do more with less, especially within these current macroeconomic environments. As you're seeing, a lot of our customers are asking ways in which you can help them achieve their goals, their business outcomes, by also consolidating vendor costs and helping improve their KPIs that they have from a security perspective. So that can be mean time to detect, mean time to respond, and other KPIs that they're tracking from a security operations perspective. But this also extends to everything that we're doing in Microsoft. And you all have a really unique perspective in terms of the conversations that you're having with our customers, our joint customers, and going through a lot of these conversations here as well. The key point here to mention as well, doing more with less can only happen with the integration of important partners like yourself. You all are the last mile in terms of implementing the solutions that we have and ensuring the technology can actually meet the business outcome that our customers are looking for. And we really want to work with you and rely with you in terms of going through a lot of those steps here as well. As you all know, Microsoft is trusted by many organizations, many countries, individuals in the world here. These are just a few of the customers that are Microsoft security customers that are utilizing our solutions here. Many of these logos might be vendors of, or might be customers of your own or vendors that you're working with. And I think the important part is to understand ways in which we can have synergies working with our joint customers, helping to produce proper outcomes, and the fact that Microsoft is trusted throughout organizations throughout the world and is a key solution provider for everything that they're providing on that end. I often show this slide and I think to myself that the numbers are pretty staggering here, but I think it's important to notice the impact that Microsoft has and the reach that we have as a security vendor. We are unparalleled in terms of the amount of signals that we collect through our organization, through Microsoft ourselves, through our research, as well as our extension of customers, our operating system, and so forth here. So just to name a few here, right? We collect over 65 trillion daily signals. That's from 2.5 billion endpoints, 34.7 billion identities, and 37 billion emails blocked every day, right? We're making $20 billion of investment over the next 5 years in security because we believe that the next generation of enablement for technology can only happen with security. And we understand that our customers are really lacking from point solutions in an unintegrated approach to security. So we want to be the leading provider from that standpoint to help our customers to do more. And within doing more and reducing cost, it really comes down to 4 things. And when you're having conversations with your customers, I know it's going to be a conversation on one of these 4 things, and the combination of all 4 that's going to be really crucial for you. So our customers are asking us, as I'm sure they're asking you, help to make me more secure, help to lower the total cost of ownership, help me enable a safe and rapid migration to the cloud or from one solution to the next, and have an ongoing proof of value for our solutions that we have overall. I think the key point here is that we can't enable all of these things for our customers without the joint partnership that we have with partners like yourselves. And I think it's really important to notice here that our customers are probably asking you the same questions. And with the end-to-end platform that Microsoft has for our security strategy, we're going to be the best vendor out there in the market to help enable these business outcomes for our customers and help lower their total cost of ownership, as well as improve their security outcomes that we have here as well. So this is really a key. Within this presentation, we're going to talk a lot about migrations. Migrations is a key motion for our customers, especially when it comes to the Defender for Cloud strategy. One of the key things that we've noticed within our Azure security and our go-to-market is customers are trying to figure out ways in which, with the ever-increasing amount of workloads that they have from cloud environments, multiple cloud vendors such as Microsoft, AWS, GCP, as well as on-prem environments, how do they correlate all those signals and have an enablement strategy that's going to allow them to collect all of that data from an integrated approach as well. Ongoing proof of value is crucial for you all as you're having conversations with customers as well, because this is going to allow you all to be that systems integrator or ISV partner that's going to help you to go through those key perspectives here as well.
Hey, Harry, sorry to interrupt. We're getting some feedback to go a little slow so people can really take in everything that you're saying.
You got it. Yeah, absolutely. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Brian, who's going to give you the overall pitch on Microsoft's security end-to-end strategy, and who's really going to help make this real as well. So we'll move a little slower as we kind of move throughout this. So Brian, over to you.
Great. Yep. Thanks, Harry, and good context there. So, Microsoft over the last, I would say 6 or 7 years, I'm about in my 6th year at Microsoft, and security has been a focus over that period where we've been really building out our end-to-end security story. And just to kind of go into a little bit of a context here, right? So cybersecurity is still a top concern for organizations. Harry kind of touched on that a little bit already, but kind of going back to our mission statement, and cybersecurity is a concern, a growing concern, right? Ransomware attacks are still trending upwards. There's no slowing down in ransomware attacks. The costs of recovering from not only ransomware but all types of attacks, those costs are growing as well. And there's still a cybersecurity staffing shortage where organizations and leadership are still struggling with filling these shortages in in headcount and within their cybersecurity staffing. So there's a lot of pressure on organizations to be able to to just kind of deal with the fact. So you've got the fact that attacks are increasing, the cost of recovering from those attacks is increasing, but yet organizations don't have enough people to kind of deal with this growing concern. So it's really kind of weighing heavy on organizations these days. So next slide, Harry. So why are defenses so difficult, right? Like why is why do organizations struggle with protecting and defending themselves? So traditionally, there's a lot of areas that defenders need to protect themselves against, right? There's email. We know phishing attacks are still the number one attack that attackers are using. Why? Because traditionally it's been successful, right? I think 90% of most attacks start with phishing email, and it's just proven time and time again that it's successful. Endpoints, right? You've got a whole host of endpoints that organizations need to protect. Now in kind of a post-COVID hybrid work world, endpoints are not just corporate managed devices, they're mobile devices, they're home devices. If you've been kind of watching the news over the last couple of weeks, an attack was as a result of a home user's computer being attacked. So identities, identities is kind of number one. Our Brett Arsenault, the Microsoft CISO, he kind of always references in his speeches and talks that attackers don't always break in, they log in, right? So they're able to just log in with an identity that they've acquired from the dark web, or that's been compromised somehow. Cloud applications and workloads are proliferating. There's on-prem, but there's cloud workloads, there's cloud applications, there's all things. So the culmination of all of these different areas of exposure and areas of attack makes things so difficult for cybersecurity defenders to protect themselves or to protect their organizations against. So you've got alerts and signals and activity coming from all of these different platforms and areas, and trying to make sense of that and identify what's relevant, what's not relevant, what's so it's very, very difficult. We recognize that. So I kind of touched on this already, right? But there's this navigation into kind of this new world where, again, attacks are growing. Not only are they growing in volume, but they're becoming more and more sophisticated, right? It's not just kind of the typical, attack that's targeting an endpoint or an application. It's this systematic, very sophisticated attacks that are becoming the new norm. And conventional security tools have not really been able to kind of keep pace, right? They're very siloed. Email security technology, endpoint security technology, identity security technology, and they really haven't been able to keep pace with these sophisticated attacks that are growing. And then you factor in the regulatory compliance requirements that is also becoming a lot more complicated for organizations. And so you see organizations kind of chase being compliant, but that doesn't always translate into being more secure. So they've got to worry about compliance requirements and all of these other things. So again, it's a lot for organizations to really have to focus on, and it is a challenge, and the changes across the landscape are not slowing. So Microsoft has, over the last few years, really focused on zero trust as the best approach organizations can take to protect themselves against these, this breadth of attacks that are happening, these more sophisticated attacks. And so zero trust, if this is probably not anything new to most people, but our focus is really on three key things. Verify explicitly. So when a user is logging in, if they're logging in, if anything from that authentication has changed, location, device, we need to verify that in fact that user is the user that they claim to be. Again, so verifying both at the identity level and at the device level. So being able to, identify risk of the user, but also identify the risk of the device. And then based upon policies, you can enforce different security controls, MFA. Maybe a device needs an update or a virus scan or something to that effect. So you can apply different policies before they can gain access to data, access to applications, get to this part of the network. So zero trust and our verify explicitly is critical. The use of least privileged access. So a user only has the level of access that they need, right? Nothing more, nothing less, just what they need to be able to do their job or perform the activity or the task that they need to do, right? We know that overprivileged access is, wreaks havoc on organizations. And then that assume breach mentality, where if a user or a device does get compromised, we can reduce the blast radius that doesn't end up turning a single user or a single device compromise into a full, organization-wide compromise. So being able to reduce that blast radius, taking that assume breach approach where, you can confidently protect an entire organization with just, in the event that a single user's identity maybe gets compromised, right? So again, this zero trust approach is an organization-wide strategy and approach. It's not a product per se. Oftentimes people get concerned or get think that zero trust is a product. At Microsoft, it's a strategy. It's a culmination of all of the technology, the people, the process, the policy, all kind of working together to protect an organization, organization-wide. Next slide, Harry. So Microsoft, we've taken the power of the Microsoft cloud, we've taken these zero trust principles, and we provide solutions to our customers that they can be confident, right, that we're able to safeguard their entire organization, protect everything with this integrated security, compliance, identity solutions that are built to really work across all platforms, across all cloud environments. You'll hear more about that as I get into, things a little bit more. But, we believe that anything less than a comprehensive security is really, no security at all. You have to cover and protect things from an end-to-end perspective. And we've also taken the approach that, based upon some of the, more traditional best of breed, point solutions, that's very complicated, right? We're focused on simplifying the complex, being able to provide that end-to-end security solution, but making, from an administrative perspective, from an integration perspective, you can see the entire picture. You can focus on the risks of your organizations, the right risks, and be able to remediate across attack kill chains with a fully integrated tool set, right? So being able to simplify a very complicated and complex environment. And then in doing so, using our leading artificial intelligence, being able to identify, these threats, very quickly, respond effectively, and really help build that secure posture, we can, catch what others miss. And, organizations can feel confident that, they've got in place the solutions that they need to kind of protect themselves on all of these different platforms and pillars, and then really use that to kind of focus on their business, right? Like our customers are in finance, they're in retail, they're in manufacturing. Their business isn't security, right? So they can allow and focus on their business and have the confidence and the peace of mind that their security and their comprehensive coverage is there, and they can protect themselves and are free to grow and expand their business, right? So that's really going back to our vision statement that Harry called out at the beginning, right? Empowering these organizations to focus on their business and feel confident that they can have that peace of mind. And just to kind of give you an example, next slide, Harry. This is kind of a view of the 40 different categories of technologies that our end-to-end security strategy and comprehensive approach can help organizations feel confident in, as far as the security controls, right? So we've got over 40 categories that we have security technology, identity, compliance technology that can help organizations bring all of that together under that, simplification from a single vendor, from a single platform, and covering not just Microsoft, right? That's one of the kind of, people think, oh, it's Microsoft just securing Microsoft. Not true. Microsoft we've developed within our security portfolio the ability to protect multi-cloud, regardless of where your applications and services are running. Multi-platform, Windows, Linux, Mac, mobile devices, Android, iOS. So that full end-to-end security across all platforms, and then integrating into kind of more legacy and your traditional hybrid on-premises environment. So organizations can really kind of, take comfort in knowing that we can protect across these broad categories. And, you can take my word for it, Harry's word for it, but, next slide, Harry. We've also been, quite, proudly recognized by Forrester and by Gartner as, leaders in their Forrester Wave and New Wave reports. I'm not going to go through these, but over the last, year or so, we've been placed in these leader quadrants. So, these industry analysts are recognizing that Microsoft does provide both best of breed, but best of suite technology, where organizations can feel confident in investing and placing their bets on Microsoft, because we've developed these best of breed solutions, but are in this best of platform end-to-end security approach. And then one more here, Gartner identified and recognized as a leader in 5 separate Gartner Magic Quadrants, right? Everything from identity, access management, endpoints, data protection, right? Not just one area, across the end-to-end security portfolio. We're investing heavily, as Harry mentioned, in our 20 billion in investments over the next 5 years, over a 5-year period. That investment is in all of these areas, not just identity, not just endpoints, not just applications, across the entire security ecosystem. Next slide, Harry. So yeah, so again, just to kind of reiterate, our unique solution, right? As Harry mentioned, we're operating as a $10 billion security business. No other security organization in the world can, has the depth and the breadth of security technology and portfolio in our portfolio than we do in our portfolio. Heavily investing in that, right? Things like, across platforms, right? Not just Microsoft securing Microsoft, but providing those built-in experiences that work cross-platform. We'll talk about that here in a minute when we start talking about Defender for Cloud. And it really is defending all clouds, not just the Microsoft cloud. The heavy investment in AI and automation, we know that that is the way of the future. So heavy investment in artificial intelligence and being able to automate that, do more with less, and kind of bringing that all together with full automation remediation. And then again, integration across, the people, devices, applications, and data, that full picture end to end. I know I'm being redundant here, but I can't stress this enough about, the full integration, that full end-to-end protections. And then, next slide. So this is just an example, Microsoft as a company protecting Microsoft, right? So Microsoft Security Technologies protecting Microsoft. We're a business just like any other, right? We're in the technology industry. We have customers, we have partners, we have vendors, we have users, we have devices, we have applications, we have data. So we're just like any other organization. And we've got a huge shift to cloud infrastructure, and our business is moving, almost exclusively to the cloud. But we do still have kind of some of that traditional technology that might exist in, corporate-owned infrastructure and data centers, right? Very similar to our customers. And we deal with the same things that every other organization has to deal with. So, things like traditional defenses, firewalls, patching, hardening of, our physical infrastructure. And then we've got, we have a very rigorous process about, our users, our people, background checks, security training, making sure that we're, going through all of the same due diligence that organizations of all sizes need to go through. But, we really focus on, training and hiring the right people, but, providing those background checks. The use of authentication, MFA, anomaly detection, least privilege. I talked about zero trust and the use of least privilege. We built that into our process, and I've got a MFA and use Windows Hello for Business and the Authenticator app, just like everybody else, and it's ingrained into our process, a very rigorous process for administrators and those writing code and building code and building that into our code process. The use of privileged access workstations to isolate these critical functions into secure access workstations and remove the risks of using the device that you're checking your email and accessing the web, right? So, single function administrative workstation, code development, code shipping, and then a rigorous security development lifecycle, right? Our process to be able to go through our security development lifecycle using our secure DevOps toolkit, and GitHub Advanced Security, Azure DevOps. We're using all of our technologies to be able to protect ourselves. From an attacker's view, We look at things both from the outside in and the inside out, right? So using our Defender external attack surface management product to be able to take a look at Microsoft as an organization from an attacker's view, and then doing our own penetration testing, red team operations, to be able to, look for weaknesses and look for vulnerabilities that might exist, relying heavily on bug bounty programs, right, where we're compensating security researchers for being able to identify, weaknesses or flaws or whatever you might want to call it in our environment, and helping them, or compensating them for that work. One hunt is our tabletop exercises, where we're actually going through tabletop exercises of different scenarios to make sure that we're protected as much as possible, right? So again, using our technology to protect ourselves. Obviously, constant continuous logging and monitoring in our CDOC, our Cybersecurity Defense and Operations Center, 24/7 SOC that's doing that monitoring. We talked about those trillions of activities and signals that are being collected. That's all coming through one of our Cybersecurity Defense Operations Centers, and being able to maintain vigilance on those signals and on those attacks and on those threats. So Microsoft protecting Microsoft, we're using our technology to protect both our kind of traditional as well as our cloud infrastructure. And as a result of that, we're learning a lot. We're able to take what we've learned, build that out, or provide that out to customers and partners in the form of recommendations, best practices, cloud architectural frameworks that organizations can use to better protect themselves. All right, so I'm going to switch gears now from kind of just talking about Microsoft and our kind of end-to-end security strategy and the platform approach and everything that I've kind of just talked about. And I'm going to really kind of focus in on Microsoft Defender for Cloud and kind of our platform pitch. So Microsoft Defender for Cloud it kind of fits into a few different categories of technologies. The first is cloud security posture management, right? So cloud security posture management is being able to assess the overall posture of your cloud and non-cloud environments, to be able to determine, okay, number one, identify what resources are being used in an organization, right? So kind of that, if you're in Azure and you've got, certain, Kubernetes services, virtual machines, storage accounts, getting good visibility into the resources that are being used, and then being able to do discovery on those, but also determine, based upon compliance requirements, security frameworks, which security controls of those resources that are deployed, which security controls are being enforced or have been set, and then providing you with, if a security control on a storage account hasn't been enforced, providing you with a recommendation to be able to say, hey, we need to turn on this setting or adjust this to be able to be, to be more secure, to meet a compliance requirement. So ongoing assessments in real time of resources that have been, that are being in use, providing those recommendations, and then remediation steps. So being able to remediate if the security control isn't being enforced, provide you with the recommended steps or a quick fix to remediate that, right? So one key component is that security posture assessment. And we do something a little bit unique, and I'll get to this in a little bit in some more detail, but we're able to provide a security score to organizations to identify or to help them, get a better perspective on how they're doing from a security controls perspective as an organization, but then also compare themselves to other organizations in similar industry and how they kind of match up. Right, so that's first and foremost around security posture, the ability to kind of harden and manage your overall security posture. Kind of the next step is, or the next kind of key component of Defender for Cloud is being able to detect threats and protect workloads. So, detect threats that are coming in from, virtual machines. Are there active alerts? Surfacing those to be able to take to take defensive actions against those alerts that are coming in across all workloads. The ability to do vulnerability assessments and assess, are certain virtual machines missing, exposed to certain vulnerabilities, and, providing with that information to be able to, take those remediation steps. And then full vulnerability management across, VMs, storage, workload, databases, et cetera. So having the cloud workload protection built right in to be able to, protect the different workloads, identify threats, vulnerability assessments, et cetera. And I'll point out, not just across these workloads running in Azure, workloads running in AWS, GCP, on-prem, right? And then, kind of lastly is being able to use security orchestration and automated response. So we've assessed the workloads, we've assessed resources, we can take a look at these security alerts that are happening and then provide automated response actions to be able to, if this happens, take this automated response to auto-resolve alerts, to auto-resolve incidents, and, take action. Full integration with, the tools of choice, right? Whether you're, SIEM is Sentinel, we hope it is, but if it's not, we can integrate into other tools. Your incident management solution, maybe it's ServiceNow or Workday, right? And you've got to take remediated response through ServiceNow. We can integrate that into that with Azure DevOps and Microsoft Teams. A lot of this is powered by our logic apps and being able to build in that direct integration with the either built-in solutions as part of this with Microsoft Sentinel, Microsoft Teams, Azure DevOps, et cetera, but also connecting out to third-party solutions. So a very comprehensive automated response and security orchestration sets of capabilities, right? So just to review, cloud security posture management, being able to secure the overall posture of the resources, workloads that are deployed, provide kind of advanced workload protection, threat detection, to be able to gain the visibility into, where's my exposure, where's my risk, and then move into automated response actions to be able to protect in an automated way any of those security threats and alerts that have been identified, again, across the entire multi-cloud on-prem environments. So that was a lot of words. Hopefully that made good sense. I'll go into this a little bit more detail on the next slide. How are we different? there's a number of products out there that kind of talk about cloud security posture management, cloud workload protection. But what makes Microsoft Defender for Cloud different? Well, first off, it's built in, it is a cloud service, right? So it's running natively in Azure. The deployment is very, very simple, right? It's a matter of enabling the service, applying that to Azure subscriptions, AWS accounts, GCP projects, and then provide that built-in provisioning process. Excuse me. So to kind of give you an example, right, where we can apply policy settings in an auto provisioning manner. So say, for instance, a new VM is added to a service and to a subscription, making sure that that VM is automatically, meets compliance requirements or policies that you have set, should be onboarded into Defender for Endpoint, and the EDR capabilities enabled, have certain policies applied to it, right? So auto provisioning of resources and the security controls. The broadest protection coverage, right? Nobody, we're very unique in the ability to be able to provide that comprehensive sets of capabilities that I just kind of talked about across multi-cloud. The remediation with it, as I talked about, as a vulnerability or as a security control is identified that's not being enforced, providing the remediation steps, but also a one-click remediation where you can just, click a single button and then that security control will be enforced. Touched on this already, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud support. Onboarding AWS and GCP is almost as simple as onboarding Azure, right? Agentless onboarding. Tie in your AWS account, your GCP projects, and immediately getting that security posture assessment and visibility into these environments. Again, auto provisioning for resources in AWS and GCP, almost as simply or just as simply as in Azure. Onboarding and extending out the manageability and the protections to on-prem resources using Azure Arc. So Azure Arc essentially provides that you can treat resources, virtual machines, containers, other resources that are in on-prem as if they're running native in Azure. Apply policies to them. Fully integration. So Azure Arc extends management, extends those security controls out to your on-prem environment. Secure Score, this is one of those things that I was talking about earlier around security posture assessment, that bird's eye view of your security posture across all clouds, looking at security recommendations in a prioritized manner, right? So seeing, where is my highest exposure? What do I need to prioritize first? And then being able to track that security posture state over time, where we give you that secure score over time. Okay, when we started, we were here, and how are we progressing as new resources are being, deployed, added to subscriptions, added to your AWS accounts, and there's kind of a tracking of these different resources being added. How do they, are the proper security controls being enforced? So you can track that, your score over time. And then the advanced threat protection, workload specific signals and threats, virtual machines, databases, containers, storage accounts, right? So very workload specific alerts that can be tracked and mitigated against. Again, using built-in artificial intelligence and anomaly detection mechanisms. We use Microsoft, it's called Microsoft Fusion, and Fusion runs Defender for Cloud, Sentinel, Microsoft Defender, all of our networking security. So Fusion is kind of our built-in or, you know, artificial intelligence anomaly detection engine that's being leveraged across all clouds, across all security services. And that's what helps us harness the power, because it integrates with our Microsoft Threat Intelligence, which is where we're seeing all of those 24 trillion, 30 trillion signals on a daily basis. That's all part of our threat intelligence service that Microsoft Fusion is able to provide those threat intelligence into our services, right? So provide that advanced threat protections that's consistent across all of our security solutions. All right, next slide, Harry. So, Defender for Cloud is useful for different personas in your organization. So if you're the CISO or, you're working with the CISO, they've got that kind of high level, they're responsible for setting the security strategy. Well, they want to be able to determine whether or not that strategy is working, right? And have they built the resilience and that overall security posture to be able to protect them? We talked about peace of mind at the beginning, right? That's what they worry about, right? Are we as an organization being resilient against attacks? So providing that CISO kind of that top level view across their entire cloud environment that they're responsible for, dashboards to visualize, is our secure score trending upwards, right? Where are other organizations that I'm, competing against? Are we, the industry average might be in the 50%, but they're up in the 80 or the 90%. So, again, providing them that top level view, the security administrator, right? This persona, the person that's kind of responsible for the defenses of the organization. So their focus is really on, which security controls are either being enforced or, more importantly, not being enforced, so that they can go in, remediate those, and monitor their implementation to make sure, as new vulnerabilities and as new services are being added, they can track those down and be able to remediate those in fast time. Security operations, right? So they're kind of charged with that round the clock 24/7 monitoring of alerts, activities, trying to determine if some activity and alert is indicator of a breach, and being able to investigate that and mitigate those incidents and those alerts as quickly as possible. And having the tooling within Defender for Cloud to be able to do that using an investigative graph. And by the way, everything that I'm talking about today, kind of at a high level, if you're going to participate in the next 3 days, you're going to see this technology in action, right? So these aren't just me saying a bunch of words. You will, stick with us for the next 3 days, and you're going to see some of my colleagues show you this. So again, security operations, being able to provide that those detections and response actions to identify attacks, investigate alerts and incidents, and quickly mitigate those threats. So what do those threats look like, right? So here's a cloud kill chain model. And, so this is one of those areas where, we talked about the threat landscape has changed. The threat landscape in this cloud kill chain model has kind of changed, over the last, 2 to 3 or 4 years around, as organizations are starting to really move to, embracing the cloud. Things like their exposure to, insecure configurations, right? Most attacks are as a result of some service, some, setting not being properly set, right? An AWS S3 bucket that's been exposed to the public internet hasn't been set private. So open entry points, open, exposed credentials, right? So the exposure being, now internet facing is critical, right? Having that visibility into what does my exposure look like, both from the inside out, but also the outside in. Next one, Harry. Access, right? As we talked about, kind of zero trust and that least privilege access model, right? So being able to see the visibility of virtual machines, applications, credentials, and then it's not just kind of IT that organizations need to worry about, IoT and OT devices, right? So again, these are prime targets for attackers to kind of go after from an access perspective. One more, Harry. Yep, lateral movement. So we know that attackers, they try and gain a foothold into the environment. Again, whether that's an exposed credential, compromise a user somehow with a phishing attack. From there, they try and gain access to virtual machines, applications, privileged credentials, and then they start moving laterally, right? They're all kind of in search of the crown jewels, right? Whatever that might be, whether it's intellectual property for the organization, whether that's useful identity information that they can sell or make available in the form of ransomware. But lateral movement and being able to move within an organization to be able to find and do their find what that next target is, right? This is critical. Last and then taking action, right? So what is their end game, right? Is it data exfiltration? Is it ransomware? So this cloud kill chain model is real, right? From the exposure, initial access, lateral movement, the end game is very this is something that is keeping defenders up at night, because it's access, and this is being heavily taken advantage of, right? So, and why? Because organizations don't have good visibility into their exposure, level of access, lateral movement paths. What actions are we taking? Has data been, exposed and actually been exfiltrated, right? So data loss, visibility. So next slide, Harry. So just a quick view into Microsoft Defender and integration with AWS. As I mentioned earlier, we can do automatic provisioning. The configuration of AWS is very simple. Getting that integrated. Once it's integrated, you've got full cloud security posture management over different AWS workloads, the auto provisioning, policy management, embedded EDR, vulnerability management. So again, Microsoft Defender integration with integration with AWS is just as simple and effective as it is for Azure, right? So again, Defender for Cloud isn't just for Microsoft Azure. All right, next slide, Harry. Yeah, I love this slide because I think this slide really kind of illustrates the true mindset of Microsoft and our end-to-end security strategy, and not just strategy, but products and that end-to-end integration kind of coming together, right? So I'm not going to completely kind of go through this slide in detail, but it really just kind of highlights, organizations are complex, right? It's not just a single organization. There's partners, there's supply chain vendors that you're working with. You've got to deal with identities that you don't own and manage, have access to resources, have access to applications, have access to data. So being able to kind of deal with that and extend out security services and security controls and protections to protect your organization from your partners. We talk about supply chain attacks, where if an organization is, or if an attacker is trying to get to one organization, oftentimes they use a partner to gain access into that organization, right? So that's a very very common approach that's being. So again, Defender for Cloud and the full Microsoft security end-to-end security solution set can help protect against these cloud or these supply chain attacks. Let's see, I think one slide left. What I did want to just kind of touch on really quickly is, last year Microsoft did, or they worked with Forrester on a study, and I'll ask Harry to kind of jump in here a little bit as well. But we did a total economic impact study around, with our, reached out to partners and customers and tried to just better understand what it is that it's kind of keeping them up at night, right? And looking at the cost savings and the benefits of things like reduction in risk of a security breach. And we're seeing that implement. Well, maybe I'll Harry, you want to go into a little bit more detail on this slide?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Brian. There's been some great kind of conversation in the chat, so I would just say keep it going with the questions. We'll get some time in Q&A towards the end. I dropped the study in the chat for you all to take a look at, and I think there's some really impressive results that you'll see from the total economic impact that you can have. And I think one of the key things we'll talk about in a little bit is how can you actually make this real for your customers? So a lot of times I speak with customers and they say, well, this is in my organization, this isn't relevant to us, but we can actually tailor a lot of the programs to edit the study in terms of the impact to their organization by looking at their security operations. So let's say you're working with a Fortune 500 company and they have a security team of 5 or 50, depends in terms of the organization, right? You can actually tailor some of these insights that you have here, but one of the things that pops out to me is the reduction in time to threat mitigation. And that's huge, right? The speed is key when it comes to these cyber incidents. And the mean time to detect, as well as mean time to response, is crucial for our security practitioners, not to mention the NPV that we're able to prove out, over $2 million and a payback period of less than 6 months. So the full details are there in the study. When you combine that with the end-to-end security platform that we have, I think it's really crucial. And then obviously, a lot of times when Defender for Cloud comes up, as Brian had mentioned, is customers that are trying to get a better grasp over their multi-cloud environment. And, we've seen a lot of organizations where they're using multiple tools for their on-premise data estate, for their AWS environment, for their GCP environment. And that's where the cost reduction can be crucial with Defender for Cloud, but it's not only cost reduction, right? It's tool fatigue. It's the ability to actually have a trusted ability to go to the Defender for Cloud portal and understand you have visibility to your on-premise data state through Azure Arc and your AWS environment, as well as your Azure environment. So some great insights there. We'll talk more about inclusivity into the key programs that you all can utilize to prove out this value as well. Back to you, Brian.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Harry. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I was at a partner invited me to speak at their customer event that they had last week, and I had an interesting conversation with a gentleman, and he was hosting a kind of a roundtable discussion on why is cybersecurity not a priority. And I thought that was an interesting topic for a roundtable discussion, because I thought, well, is cybersecurity not a priority? And I think the fact is that it is one of many priorities that are faced with organization, right? So it's not that it's not a priority. I think there's just a lot of competing priorities that exist. And I think, you know, from my perspective, you know, as we were talking about this, I think organizations just get so overwhelmed with cybersecurity and the challenges that kind of go along with it, right? Like we talked about, you know, the increase of cybersecurity attacks. We talked about all the tools. We talked about, you know, a lot of different things. And kind of from my perspective, and what Microsoft, I think, has been really working, you know, super hard at, has been to give organizations the ability to make cybersecurity that priority, but not have to, you know, to allow them to prioritize it in such a way that it's not, you know, this huge burden, a financial burden, a, you know, with the fact that, you know, there's not enough staffing at most organizations, right? Cybersecurity, we talked about the staffing shortages, right? So, you know, so that's my kind of perspective on it, is the fact that, you know, helping organizations keep it a priority, but do so where it's not kind of a huge burden to them as an organization. So I don't know, hopefully that kind of makes sense. All right, I think next slide. This is back to you, Harry.
Excellent. Thanks, Brian. Some good discussions in the chat here. So I'm going to, you know, talk a little bit more on connecting the dots to what you just heard from Brian on our Defender for Cloud pitch, our end-to-end security platform, and how does that connect to the go-to-market strategy. And when you're talking with Microsoft sellers, or you're talking with your customers, you know, how does this all connect? And I think one key point to mention is, for the folks that are on this call, your sales process kind of has two parts. And the first part is getting alignment with your Microsoft sellers that are working on the same customers. And the second, more important part, is getting aligned with your end customers in terms of the value. So we already talked a lot about the value prop in terms of, you know, our end-to-end approach, how we help multi-platform, as well as hybrid cloud, multiple operating systems, and so forth. And Microsoft's really building that end-to-end view within that environment. So for us, this fiscal year on our FY23, and you'll see more in the future here as well, the key for Microsoft and our sellers that pertains to this motion, we talk a lot about security ACR. We talk about securing multi-cloud environments. So you'll hear about solution plays, and solution plays, for lack of a better term, is kind of the go-to-market strategy that our sellers care about. And for you all as a partner, are thinking about getting more embedded with our Azure security go-to-market, there's a huge opportunity for you all to really build in Azure security into your motions. And there's an opportunity for you all to expand your infrastructure opportunities. If you're having conversations with customers that are AWS customers, GCP, on-prem, we think there's a really good opportunity to link in this conversation with Microsoft Defender for Cloud into those conversations. And even let's say if you have a customer or that is looking to secure their AWS environment, and maybe they have a small footprint with Azure, we still think there's value of having the story of Microsoft Defender for Cloud and how we can help them holistically across their environment. At the end of the day, we think there is a really good value prop in terms of best of breed and best of suite that we have with Defender for Cloud and our end-to-end security platform that can plug in and provide value to our customers wherever they are on that cloud journey. So just wanted to provide that additional context here as well. Maybe just to reiterate some of the points that Brian here has already made, but when it comes to securing multi-cloud environments, it boils down to these kind of 4 capabilities, visibility and security and compliance, right? We talked about CSPM, which is crucial to that. So cloud security posture management. We have, and I put it in the chat here, in preview, our premium CSPM capabilities, which are going to be a game changer for our go-to-market approach. That's really crucial for our customers. Protecting against increasingly sophisticated threats. And, this is where Brian had mentioned, the cost of breach, ransomware, et cetera. It's really getting more complex. And, as AI is getting better for Microsoft, that's a great thing, right? Providing more capabilities for us to automate and increase our visibility for our customers that we're providing. But it's also for our the adversaries that are going after it. They're using a lot of the same increases in technology and AI capabilities to go out and try and breach customers as well. And one of the key focuses I've heard Brett Arsenault, our CISO, talk about, as well as Charlie Bell, our EVP, is trying to make the cost model for ransomware and business email compromise to be at a point where it doesn't actually make cost sense for our adversaries to breach our customers. It's too costly, right? And that's a key point when it comes to securing multi-cloud environments. Managing access and permissions management. So Entra permissions management is definitely a key tool in here. Our identity platform is very key on here, and misconfigured cloud identities is a really key problem that our customers are struggling with today. And then developing and operating secure applications in the cloud, right? We think there's a huge opportunity to shift left, and was mentioned in the chat a little bit earlier here as well. We've got some really key capabilities with DevOps that are coming out with Defender for DevOps. That's going to be crucial for that go-to-market. Think of it from this way. The fact that we own GitHub and we own one of the most popular developer repository in the world, and we're integrating a lot of that approach for securing that from code to cloud is going to be a game changer for our customers to help them ensure that if they can actually reduce the security threats and find the vulnerabilities at the code level before it goes into production, that reduces the cost from a SecOps perspective by a tremendous amount. And we're still going through in terms of integrating that. But those 4 key points that I mentioned really integrate into the circle that we talk about Defender for Cloud and a lot of the capabilities that are really crucial for us, for our customers. And there's also a strong integration point for Microsoft Sentinel, which will be a part of the second session that you're all going to hear about as well, which is correlating all that data from Defender for Cloud into a SIM tool, as well as a SOAR tool that can actually help automate and integrate the threats that our customers are seeing within their platform here as well. So, just a reiteration of some of the key points that Brian made as well. I also heard a little bit earlier in terms of customers that are using the end-to-end Microsoft approach. Do we have examples? And this is one example from a customer, Land O'Lakes. It's a public testimonial. I encourage you all to take a look at the public testimonials that are available. It's always really important to provide a case study or an overview for our customers so they can get an art of the possible. And then also work with your Microsoft sellers on their customers, or if you're trying to land a customer on yourself, that could be a Microsoft Defender for Cloud customer, work with the Microsoft seller or your partner team to try and get that integration point. If you need a one-to-one reference study from a customer that's using everything, then feel free to reach out here as well. But this is a great use case for really our E5 capabilities, the integration from some of that core Microsoft capabilities, as well as some of the cutting edge with Defender for Cloud capabilities that we have with Defender for Containers, which has been a huge one that we've been seeing. So being able to scan AKS private clusters was one of the key use cases for this customer. and being able to deploy the Defender for Cloud capabilities across their AKS clusters and other components, including Defender for Endpoint, was crucial as this customer was trying to go through the Log4j nightmare vulnerability that we all experienced recently here as well. And you can read the full study, take a look at some more of these studies that we have to gain an understanding of how customers are really adopting the end-to-end platform and how Defender for Cloud really complements that and provides it as well. And then cost reduction, reducing mitigation threats, et cetera, right? These are some of the key capabilities that we think are really important to help our customers. And Brian had mentioned the Forrester TEI study. Again, I'll talk a little bit about how you can integrate that into your go-to-market approach. But we like to talk a little bit about, we hear do more with less, but our security practitioners, frankly, they have to secure more with less. I personally worked when I was in the field for Microsoft working with customers. I worked with a 20,000 person organization that had a 4-person security team. We know security professionals are swamped. They're swamped with detections. They're swamped with all of the different platforms that they have to manage and being able to toggle between different interfaces to understand where the actual threats that are coming out here as well. And one of the key value props that we think with Defender for Cloud and the integrated approach that we have to the rest of the security platform is this is going to help them enhance their visibility, reduce the fatigue from alerts and spend that they have, and also improve the productivity and satisfaction of their security team. Ensuring that our customers continue the employee satisfaction of the security teams is a big problem as well, right? We've got a huge gap in terms of employment when it comes to security practitioners. And that's only exacerbated by the fact that they're confused in terms of how they can actually manage everything from that perspective. So just wanted to touch about that upon that as well. So this is a slide that, it doesn't look pretty, but wanted to spend a minute or two, and I'll ask Brian to chime in here as well, just to familiarize you all with the relevant stakeholders at Microsoft. And I'll just say, as someone, I've been at Microsoft about 4 years, we have a complex organization structure, and we have that's an understatement, but in our field also has a complex organizational structure that's oftentimes I hear from partners is difficult to understand and difficult to have alignment with. So I'm going to do my best to help demystify a little bit of that, and then I'll ask Brian to chime in to provide some additional insights. But I think it's crucial for you all to understand when you're having these conversations, who do you talk to? Who do you connect with? Who do you ask your partner development managers or your key partner contacts from Microsoft to connect with as well? And it breaks down to 3 categories. We talk about the ATU, we talk about the STU, and we talk about the CSU. So the ATU is the account team unit. You can think of them as really the crucial individuals. They're the quarterback, the CEO or CTO of the account that really own the end-to-end relationship with our Microsoft customers. And that's the account executive and the account technology strategist. So they're responsible for everything under the sun when it comes to Microsoft technology. Our security products are one of many different capabilities that they're compensated for and that they're tracking towards. And it's important to get alignment with those folks in terms of their understanding and their relationships that they have within their customers as well. Then we have the STU, which is the specialist team unit. And those are really, you can think of a layer deeper in terms of practitioners of specific product areas that really have a more technical understanding, maybe not a 300 or 400, but are really the account executive for the specific product area. And there's 2 key individuals within the STU that we're going to talk about here. We've got the Azure STU, which are the folks that care about Microsoft Azure and all of the products that are inclusive of that, which includes our security ACR products, which are Defender for Cloud, Sentinel, some of the identity and access products, our Azure networking products as well. And then we have our security STU. Our security STU is, you all are probably familiar with a lot of these folks here as well. The security STU, the security specialist being the key person within that, as well as the security technical specialists. They're really the folks that are trying to land the end-to-end story of Microsoft security, which is inclusive of our E5, E3 products, as well as our Microsoft Azure security products that we have. Finally, we've got our CSU. Those are the customer success unit, and their job is to drive post-sales and satisfaction with our customers, help them manage and optimize, help them ensure deployment is key and successful into this. So as an SI, if you're an SI that's on this call, CSU is going to be a key person and key group to work with. So think of your cloud solution architects, both for Azure Core and Azure Security, are going to be two key individuals that you're going to want to work with as well. So, Brian, please chime in if there's anything else that you think is impactful here.
Yeah, no, that was a good overview, Harry. Thank you. One thing I would so I've been with our GPS team for about the past year and a half or so, but I came from the security stew. I was a security technical specialist for a number of years, and a couple of things there, right? So the stew on the right, the Azure stew and the security stew, they're really focused on, as Harry kind of mentioned, new revenue opportunities, whether that's E3, E5 deals. They work a lot on the EA agreements and moving customers in that direction, as well as ACR, new revenue opportunities. The CSA is a cloud solution architect, and on the left in the CSU, they're really focused on not so much new revenue opportunities, but making sure that the customers are leveraging their current investment, making sure that they're using all of the E5 services, and that if they've committed to certain security services in Azure, that they're getting kind of the best value for that investment. What I would suggest to partners, and we'll maybe touch on this a little bit later, but if you're working a new opportunity, reach out, find out who the relevant account team is at Microsoft for that customer. And there's a lot of programs and support that they can provide you, right? Microsoft sellers do require to be partnering with partners, but we would also like to see partners, if they're working a deal themselves, partner with Microsoft, right? Oftentimes I get pulled in kind of, at the 11th hour when a partner is working an opportunity, and it could have really benefited that opportunity if they had been working with Microsoft directly, right? So there's kind of this two sides, partners working with Microsoft and Microsoft working with partners that can really benefit these revenue opportunities.
Appreciate that.
Excellent. Thank you for the context, Brian. I think it's always important to provide kind of the perspective of who's who in the zoo and how do you work with them and collaborate with them. What I'd also say is there's often times when you all are going to be leading an opportunity and these sellers might not be aware, but I would say always over-index on over-communicate with your Microsoft sellers. They want to work with you all on these same opportunities, and they want to get engaged. They love it when partners are bringing them opportunities, right? And you're doing some of the validation, opportunity sizing, and so forth. So I think that's always important. Okay, key go-to-market programs. So what I'm going to talk about here is the Microsoft sales process is how we think about it. And what are the key partner programs that you all on this call can actually utilize to map to that Microsoft sales process, as well as get paid, right? One of the key things that we want to do with our partner programs is ensure we are actually incentivizing you all to drive the proper actions that are going to meet our customers and our Microsoft sellers in the go-to-market strategy that we have to help them enable their business outcomes, help them secure more with less, as well as get to that end state of actually having visibility across their multi-cloud, hybrid cloud environments, and being able to say, when we look at our secure score, we know we're properly setting up the protocols that we need to do to feel comfortable with the level of risk that we've aligned with our business on as well. So I'm going to start on the left-hand side, and I'm going to show you a slide on each one of these in terms of what they are. But at each stage of the sales process, we actually have capabilities that are going to help you all align with the Microsoft team, as well as align with your end customers. So you can pitch these to your customers as you're having conversations as well. And it starts in the first left-hand area here on the pre-sales side, which is generating interest. So we have a security immersion workshop called Shadow Hunter, which I'll talk about as well. You can think of this as a top of the funnel kind of exercise. This is a one-to-many approach. So if you're working with several of your customers, you're trying to generate demand from your partner capabilities, this is a great area to do so, and do so in a very fun, gamified process. I've been through this workshop. It'll go through a real life use case on cyber compromise and how do you respond, and you've got actions you can take. So it's kind of fun as well. And to be honest, it's something I would do in my free time if I didn't work at Microsoft. So it actually provided a lot of entertainment to go through it as well. And we hear a lot from that standpoint here as well. The second stage is create intent. So we have our secure multi-cloud workshop that's really crucial here. And this really relies on the pre-sales capabilities to go through and help a customer understand their secure score and some of the key components within secure score and the actions that they can take as well. You can also conduct a solution assessment focused on cloud security. Now, solution assessments are where the rubber meets the road of making the Forrester TEI study real with our customers. So what it'll actually do is go through their environment, it'll run a scan using secure score and our Defender capabilities, and give them actionable insights where their configurations were misconfigured or where there might be vulnerabilities or potential threats within their environment. And then it'll actually work with you to create an action list of items that they can enable and turn on, as well as a strategy based upon your expertise as a systems integrator to actually meet the threats and issues that they have from that standpoint as well. Building a technical case, we have programs like ESIF and customer investment funds. We have ACO, Azure credit offers, which are capabilities that your Microsoft sellers can request that can help close the deal and work with you all in terms of investments from that standpoint. And then once we move to the post-sales phase, we also have other capabilities that you can utilize, such as AMP, our Azure Migrate and Modernize program, which is really crucial. If a customer is trying to migrate and modernize their infrastructure from on-prem to the cloud with their Windows Server and SQL Server footprint, this is a key opportunity for you to come in and insert the key capabilities that we have as well as our intent usage workshops, which is the Defender for Cloud workshop, which has a post-sales capability that's going to be included as part of that as well. So I'm going to move a little quickly here because we only have a few minutes left to go through it and want you all to be able to get through some of the next steps. And if we have time, I'm happy to go over a few minutes. I would love it if we were able to get a few questions here as well. So this is the Shadow Hunter workshop, right? Think of this in terms of generating interest to your customer, a one-to-many approach. This is a key thing that you can use as well going through that process. Cloud security assessments. This is going to be crucial for the rubber meeting the road on providing actual documentation on how they can move from A to B, reduce their cost, hit the KPIs that the customer cares about, and really create that business case to work with the customer on as well. Our multi-cloud workshop. You're going to hear more about this as well, but this is really using Secure Score, our Defender for Cloud capabilities, to create that pilot and the ability to actually go out and implement Defender for Cloud and work with all of you here as well in terms of that process. CAF, our Cloud Adoption Framework, is really important as part of this. So this is what our Azure sellers are talking about throughout the entirety of this. Security is a discipline that should be built into this approach, and you can run a lot of these programs side by side with the Cloud Adoption Framework, or if you're having conversations, security should really be built in to this process here as well. I'm going to go through AMP very quickly, and then we'll get into some of the next steps, and then we'll close it off for some of the actions that we're going to have here as well. So AMP is very crucial for you all, for our customers as well. We see a tremendous amount of opportunity for our customers that are on-premise customers that have been utilizing Windows Server, SQL Server, and other on-premise assets to really migrate and modernize to the cloud. And we think there's a huge opportunity for you all to work with our sellers to nominate first, and we have a partner-led AMP nomination process where you can actually go out and drive this on your own. That's going to allow you to have that process for which you all can get paid, help the customer make economic sense of migrating, modernizing to the cloud, as well as enabling Defender for Cloud from day one as they're starting their Azure subscriptions and setting up VMs and so forth from that standpoint. So I'm going to skip a little further, and Brian, I'm just going to go over some of the partner opportunity. We'll share this content with you as well, but we've got some great success stories as well, and economic impact that partners have had working with our security solutions here. Just a quick shout out, over the next few days, the 14th through 16th, There's going to be the technical deep dive. It was mentioned earlier, where you're actually going to get hands-on exposure to these resources and really go through some of the steps to help understand how to actually work in an Azure environment, setting up multi-cloud approaches here as well. That's going to be followed next week with Sentinel, which is also crucial to our go-to-market perspective. You'll hear more about the enablement session next week here as well. Key go-dos, and then Brian and I will take some questions if folks are able to hang on for a few minutes here. So 5 key things I'd recommend for all of you here. So attend the technical trainings that are happening later this week. It's going to get you a real in-depth understanding. We've invested in those to ensure that you all can actually go in a lab environment and learn about that. Power up with the programs. Understand which programs work for you in your go-to-market. So whether it's the pre-sales workshops or solution assessments, the partner-led AMP programs, they're all key tools within your toolkit that you can use to enable and work with your customers and your Microsoft sellers. Specialization. You need to get some of these specializations. Attaining at least one security specialization is crucial. It helps to move you up the stack in terms of our sellers having the confidence as well as our customers having the confidence to work with you. And then understanding the verticals that you guys operate in. You might operate in every vertical out there, but getting the case studies to say, hey, we've had a lot of success with financial services, manufacturing is also crucial for our customers and our Microsoft sellers. And then the go-to-market offers. Familiarize yourself with new campaign content. Everything that we have out there, we're going to have a recap email we're going to send out to you. But this is all crucial in terms of sending out to your customers, generating that interest, and being the tip of the spear of our sales process here as well.